Welcome to the See Joy and Expand podcast. My name is Christian Joy Panachos, and I am an embodiment life coach and quantum hypnotist. And come join me as we explore what it means to be a messy, raw, imperfect, and authentic human being through experiences of the body. We'll be journeying deep into our subconscious worlds and see what makes our souls tick, and coming back to our conscious minds with maybe a little bit more courage, a little bit more compassion for ourselves, and just daring to dream again. I hope that each episode will guide you to an aha moment, intuitive hit, or gut yes, so we can fearlessly live our lives again. Hi everyone, it's Christian here, and today I'm going to be sharing my art trauma story. Non-triggering art trauma story. I just say that because I don't know, when people hear the word trauma, they're like, oh no, this is gonna be like deep, hard, sticky topics or tough things to hear. This is actually, I love the story of my art trauma because it really paints a picture of how trauma affects us in our lives and into adulthood. And here we go. So when I was 4 or 6 years old, I want to say 4 years old. And when I was four, I remember I was just having one of those boring days where you just doodle. You have nothing to do. So back in the 90s or 80s, 4 years old, 88. Yeah, this was the 80s. When I was 4 years old, we were just doodling and being bored, but doodling. And I remember just drawing from top to bottom on this piece of paper and just having a good old time, just like enjoying myself, not having a care in the world. And when I finished, this sheet of paper was filled from top to bottom. And when I was done and like in awe of everything I created, each little picture on this piece of paper, I was just so excited. I was just like, oh my God, look, I made this. I was like, just genuinely, as a kid, everything's genuine. So excited about this creation I made, my piece of art. And I didn't even have the word for it. I wouldn't call it art. I was just like, look what I made. My 4-year-old brain's like, I made this thing. And of course, what do little children do after they do something that they're really excited and proud of? They want to share it. So I went to look for one of my parents, and my mom was in the kitchen and she was cooking. And I went to show her. I went to show her my creation. And she was doing that, the usual adult thing or parent thing. Like, you got a lot on your mind, you have a lot of things to do. And this is like just me looking at it now. She probably was like, her mind was very preoccupied with all the things she had to do in life, like, the adult stuff, like probably bills or how I'm gonna meet my bills, or I have so many things to do, or just all the things. And I went to show her the piece of paper and she was just like, "Oh, that's cool." And she didn't pay it any mind. And I wasn't butthurt about it either. I was just like, "Okay, whatever." She's like, she's busy. And so my excited 4-year-old self like just was dancing and waving this piece of paper around like, "Oh," like just delighted and happy. And I stood on the step stool and I'm in front of the stove where my mom was cooking. She was like chopping vegetables on the counter. And I start waving the piece of paper because I'm just so happy and excited. Like, I feel it now. I'm like, oh, so like that excited feeling. And I proceed to wave the paper over the boiling pot of water, and the steam caught my piece of paper on fire. And I remember the feeling of shock. Like I froze. And then my mom caught it on the corner of her eye and she immediately grabbed it from my hand, snatched it, and threw it in the sink and put out the fire. My artwork was ruined. And immediately after seeing that, after the shock, burst into tears, crying like so hard. And it's funny because when I recovered this memory, I thought I totally have completely forgot about it. I totally forgot this event even happened. I recovered this memory 2 years ago. So I was 37 years old. And when it came to me, I was um, actually in the middle of my coaching training. And one of my peer coaches was coaching me. And this, I don't know if I was doing tapping or visualization, but this memory came back to me. And I was in that moment when this memory came back to me, I was actually surprised. I was like, I haven't thought of this. I haven't thought of this memory in years. And now that this memory has been added to my awareness in adulthood, I was like, I've been like having lots of moments of reflection between like within the last 2 years since I recovered that memory, and I was like, wow, this memory is like one of those core wounds. You ever watch Inside Out and you have those core memories that just shape your existence? This was a core memory for me. And I labeled it. I realized what this event meant for me. This was my first experience of loss in my whole entire life. And when I unpacked that and realized that, I was like, what? This memory, like, it makes so much sense. Like, as I like go through all the other events in my life, like that I was engaging in art or creativity, I was like, oh my God, this is my subconscious patterning. This is where my subconscious patterning comes from. This is the reason why I was too scared to be creative, too too scared to start, too scared to finish, too scared to put myself out there. And I'm going to share like what happened after that. Biggest loss of my life at 4. Biggest experience of loss. My first experience of loss as a 4-year-old. And then as I recollected, well, what happened after that? What was my experiences with art ever since then? And I could think to when I would draw, and after that, like I remember only copying things. I would just copy a piece of like I at the time I loved Sailor Moon when I was a kid. And I would just copy Sailor Moon pictures and I would copy them to a T and probably make them look a little bit even better than the original picture. But I would show that to people and they would be like, "Oh my God, like you're really good. You made this." And I was probably at that particular memory was in middle school. And I realized that I was showing up in perfectionism. I was hiding in the guise of perfectionism, and in the copying, I had nothing to lose. It was not something that came from my insides. And when I made something perfect and got validation from an outside source how great it is, that felt safe. And when I would step into making something from my insides, stepping into creativity, I would get so frustrated and angry when something didn't come out the way I envisioned it in my mind. And I would work for hours and hours and hours, days on end. And when something like any frustration or difficulty would arise in that creating journey with whatever I was working on, I would get immediately frustrated, angry, and abandon a project altogether. And I was like, wow. It is really interesting how perfectionism showed up. Like, I don't identify with perfectionism, but perfectionism is something that shows up in my family and many other people's families. So I think a lot of people would resonate with this. But being in the perfection actually stopped me from starting projects altogether too. That's how that showed up also. And then I ended up having this subconscious and sometimes conscious dialogue about myself, how I'm not a creative person. And it's wild to me when I look back at that, like how, as a young girl, I have this very painful experience, and that was imprinted in my nervous system. And every subsequent experience that had a similar theme to that, I showed up in ways subconsciously that kept me safe. So I wouldn't feel that loss again. So I wouldn't create from my insides. I wouldn't do anything that was high stakes. Like, what if I made this and somebody like talk shit about it? That would really hurt my feelings. That idea of that happening would the idea of somebody criticizing my art was very that the idea of it was very painful to me. And I was like, this is where it all comes from. And it's really funny how this is all this story is coming up for me now. And it has been, I've been unpacking this story for the past year. Like, how has it been affecting my life? And why is it showing up now? Because it's really weird that I was like, why is it even coming up now? And I realized that stepping into new spaces will bring up old stuff, doing new things, approaching your dreams, or making moves towards your dreams. And in this, in my journey of engaging and making moves towards my dream goals, it's requiring me to be creative. Like, I was on Instagram once and I saw a post and somebody had said that the journey of the entrepreneur is the journey of creativity. Something to that tone. And I was like, oh my God, that is so true. That is, that resonated with me a lot. And doing new things require you to be versions of yourself that you never knew you had inside of you. And for me, being the label, the identity of the artist, the creative had a lot of high stakes for me in my nervous system. It's something that didn't feel safe to engage in. Plus the societal and cultural messaging that I received from my family as well as society, that you can't survive being creative or being an artist. And I thank God I'm a rebel now. Like, I identify as a rebel because now I'm just like, fuck that. If it sounds limiting, I'm like, I I'm so stubborn. I'm like, I'm gonna prove that I can make this happen. That's where I am now with it all. But and this came up, this memory, like a couple weeks ago when I was making Substack. It was so funny that I could step into Substack. I don't identify as a writer, so there's no stakes in it. I'm like, whatever, I'm just writing. I feel like this is my next right move in this moment into showing up and communicating what the message I want to share. I feel like I express myself in the written word more easily and readily than I do in spoken formats, like here on this podcast. So for me, it like made a lot, like that was my logical next step, and it sounded fun. I was like, a newsletter, like there's no stakes in it for me. I can create and not feel scared to do it. And I noticed my one of my recent articles, I don't remember which one it was. It's the one that had to do with grief. And I was thinking about it was grief and the ideas of death and endings, not like actual death, but like figurative death. The endings of things feel like death, like figurative death. I'm getting abstract now, but I hope you can I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. The endings of things is also the beginnings of things. And I was thinking of all the Substack articles or newsletters I have put forth so far that required me to show up and share things from within myself, not from words from other people. That these are things that come from me and what I've learned throughout my life and what wants to be expressed through me. And I realized that every time I would put out an article that came from within, from my creativity, from my artistry, I was putting a piece of myself out there. And to make my next article, it would require me to let go of that last one because nobody gave me any praise for that particular article. I wouldn't say nobody. I do have a friend that's like, oh my God, this is great. But I'm saying I didn't receive the praise that I would search for in those moments. I would draw something and I would make it perfect. And they'll be like, oh, I have value now in making something perfect and something that wasn't, and it felt safe because it wasn't mine to begin with. But this, like, Substack has become this thing where I am creating for my insights. It's actually safe to create for my insights. I don't have to have attachment to each newsletter that I put out there. But I did when I had come to that awareness. I felt a sense of sadness. Sadness of, oh, I put something out there and now I have to just let it go and move on to the next thing. And I don't know that people experience that with their creations. I think a lot of artists probably have a lot of have a healthy relationship with each project if they're practicing it. I'm not practicing this. I'm like uncovering this in real time with you guys and I'm sharing with you what is coming up for me and showing up in new places in new ways. So, yeah, that's how art and trauma showed up in my life, in that story, in this area of my life. And I hope that this story paints a picture of how the experiences of childhood are actually can be pretty profound. They shape the rest of your life. They can shape the rest of your life unwittingly, subconsciously, unconsciously. And I hope that if you're a parent, that if your child is going through a tough thing, that I think it's really cool now that I see this event now the way it is and with all the things that I understand now, that this child is going through a very traumatic moment and it might not look very big to you, but for that child it feels really big to them because up until that point they've never experienced anything worse than that moment. And something as small as my little piece of paper going up in flames shaped the rest of my life until this moment, until I came back to this awareness, came back to this realization that I am operating out of this pattern. And I don't want to say that none of this was bad. I don't want to say that this experience was bad. It was. You can't protect your children from everything that they go through. This experience this was just like an experience that I had to experience in my life for whatever reason. This was my experience. And I don't know. I have no answers for actually, okay. I'm going to take a step back. My personal belief on experiences is that, and I believe in reincarnation. I came into this life and I chose that experience for myself. as a soul who wants to experience things as a human. I hope that this story shows you that there might be something that has shaped your life that you just don't realize until one day you realize it. Maybe one day you unpack that part of you that you forgot a long time ago. Maybe it'll be something similar to my situation or not. I don't think everybody is meant to remember everything that happened to them as a child, or maybe not now, maybe later, maybe not ever. Everybody's life journey is very nuanced. So I hope this gives you a better understanding of how the nervous system plays a role in our lives and in our bodies, and how that trauma, that event, that big event that happened to me has shaped the rest of my life. But now that I know, now that I'm stepping into new places and spaces, that doesn't have to be my story moving forward. It's just something to notice that I am going to probably move through. I might have some emotional moments that I will be moving through moving forward, but at least I know where it comes from. I have the tools to address it as it happens, and that feels very empowering and exciting because I'm not listening to the fear, that fear dialogue in my inner critic mind. That doesn't have to be my story. And when you do that, life becomes a mystery. Like, you don't, like, what happens next now that I'm choosing a different route, a different journey, a different action moving forward. So I'm excited, you guys. I'm excited to share my journey with you guys. I'm excited to share how my business and how all of this will unfold for me. And I love sharing it because I love to share what is possible. I'm very like I'm a very rose-colored glasses optimistic type of person, but I'm very I want to say I am a realist too as well. Like I don't know if any of you follow me on Instagram. I share some very like real world things on my Instagram stories because I have this interesting relationship with the truth, and I feel like if we face the truth in things, especially how our world is batshit crazy, it's like insane right now, that we are able to come up with solutions instead because what's happening is not working. And we have to show up differently if we want things to be different. And tying it back to my trauma, if I didn't choose to show up differently and become an entrepreneur in business, in my own business, in a service-based business, I would have never quit nursing. I would have never decided I wanted more from my life. I would have never chose to believe that I don't have to burn out for the life that I want. I Anything that's a limiting that sounds like a limiting belief to me, I'm just like I don't subscribe to that that thought, that belief. Like, why do I even believe it anyways? Like, who even told me to believe that? Where did that belief even come from? I have thoughts like this all the time. I'm like, wait, I'm thinking this thought, and where did it even come from? Why do I even think this? Why do I even believe it? Is this true? Is this true for me? Does it resonate? Anyways, that was just a peek into my weird reflective brain. I spend a lot of time in my brain just engaging in interesting thoughts, and I'm just like, what? What? Anyways, thanks everybody for being here with me, and I can't wait to share and can't wait to share how this all unfolds and what it will look like moving forward. And I don't know. I'm excited. There's a lot of mystery. I have no clear path in front of me because I'm doing things I've never done before. I'm taking steps into a path less traveled, and All I know that right now in my insides, I'm just excited. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in the next episode.